One of the greatest business model that makes a global impact in the world is the type that we call outlaw. The other word that we can use is what we call a lawbreaker. And for your information, do you know that David was a lawbreaker? He was an outlaw. He was a rebel. And if you are doubting me, allow me to share with you three rules that David broke so that he can defeat Goliath. Welcome. This is last word on Sunday. My name is John Kemani. We've been continuing with a series of creativity, and for you to be able to be creative, for you to be able to make a difference, for you to be able to launch into the market, then one of the things that you're required to do then is the need to be a lawbreaker. And what you are saying is that anybody who is creative is equally a rule breaker, is an outlaw, is a rebel. Now look at David, a 17-year-old boy who has been sent by his father to go and check on his brothers and to take some retroaches on them. And what happens? He goes out there, if you're following me, what does he do? He hears Goliath uttering the challenge, and every Israelite soldier scampers for safety thanks to coward lack of courage. And David had to break three rules for him to be able to face Goliath and kill him. And I think these three laws, we need to break them like yesterday. If we desire to be able to conquer the challenges that are ahead of us, if we need to overcome the reluctant situations ahead of us, if we need to go to the next level, we must be able to break these rules that I'm about to mention. Rule number one that David broke is dress like your opponent. You know, when he went to the king and he was able to convince the king that he be given opportunity to fight them, one of the things that actually happened is that he was dressed uh, in King Saul's military tunic, which again was too big for him. Number two was too heavy for him, and again he was not used to this kind of artillery. You know, and interesting enough is that he actually told the king, okay, let me get it out. He did not stay with it. He actually removed it out. Why? Because it was too heavy for him. You know, he was able to overcome what we call the spirit of imitation. You know, the spirit of imitation is where you want to do things the way others are doing, so that you can win the game. You know, wearing a certain t-shirt or dressing in a certain way so that you can match somebody else, or so that you can look like somebody else, does not give you actually a winning edge. It actually gives you a disadvantage, and you end up losing the game. It is very important for us to be able to realize that one of the rules that we need to break is the rule of imitation. We must not do it the way they are doing it. The only person that the Bible recommends us that we imitate is God. The rest of us, we need to go our way. We need to, if we are fish, we need to swim like a fish. If we are birds, we need to swim, we need to fly like birds. If you are a chicken, please do things the way chicken does. If you are an eagle, do things like an eagle. Don't imitate. The moment when you start imitating, then you lose the game. You don't become you don't stand out. You are not able to do that which God called you to do. You become useless. You become somebody unimportant, and nobody can celebrate you. So rule number one that we need to break is the rule of imitation. Thou shalt not imitate other people. Become the kind of a person that God has called you to be. Speak the way God has called you to be. Cut your own Nike, so to speak. Be your own person. Be the person that God has called you to be. Rule number one that David broke is the rule of imitation, dressing like his opponent. Number two, David broke the rule of going with sophisticated weapon. You know, if you look And if you ask me, that is the rule we call that David broke the rule of what we call comparison. Everybody wanted David to compare himself with Goliath. And because Goliath was dressed up for the battle, because he was a foot soldier, David was completely a different kind of a soldier. He was a completely different kind of a warrior, because David was not a foot soldier. He was not trained for infantry. David was trained as a slinger. And the rule of engagement are completely different. When you are the slinger, you operate from the heights. When you are a foot soldier, you operate on the ground. And these are completely different sets of arrangement. And I think it is very important for us to be able to realize that when we compare ourselves, when our rules of engagement are completely different, what we do is that we lose. If you are in teaching ministry, you cannot be able to compare yourself, you cannot be able to benchmark against an evangelist. If you are in manufacturing industry, you cannot be able to benchmark against service industry. Those are two completely worlds. And allow me to say, when it comes to comparison does two things. Either it makes you feel proud or arrogant when you are up in the game, or it makes you to feel useless when you're down, when you're not able to compare. I need to tell you something, that we are completely unique people. When you look at your you know set of thumbprints, they are completely different. There is no one that resembles you. The way you talk, the way you smile, the way you think, the way you dress, you are just a completely different person. And so it is not good to compare yourself. When you compare yourself, you're going to whittle yourself now many times to fit the kind of a person that you're comparing yourself with. And so one of the other rules that David broke is that he did not go for sophisticated weapon. What did he do? He went with laughable weapons, the sticks, the stones, and a sling. And no wonder Goliath looked at him and said, "Hey, look at you. Do I look to you like a dog? That's why you are coming to fight me with sticks and stones." Where alishangaa, because just one stone that sank on his forehead and he was gone. And it is very important that we do not compare ourselves with anybody else. In fact, if you have to compare yourself with anybody, compare yourself with yourself. In fact, we say, if you are the best in the class, then you are in the wrong class. And again, the best competition that you need to say, like we've said, compare yourself with yourself, compete with yourself, don't compete with anybody. So David defeated broke the rule of dressing like his opponent. The rule number 2, go for sophisticated weaponry. He went for a simple laughable weaponry. Actually, it brought Goliath down. And then finally, rule number 3 that David broke is the rule that says war is not for underage. He was unqualified. He was not an army officer. He was just a shepherd. But when his brother actually asked him, "Who have you left those few sheep with?" Because he was simply a soldier, a shepherd. He was not qualified to be to fight in the battle. And the written rule simply says that don't engage yourself, don't start a dream, don't start a project when you are limited. From the look of things, David was limited. Number one, he was limited in the fact that he did not meet the age threshold. Number two, he was unqualified, or he was underage because he could not handle the weapon or the tunic, the military gear that was given. Number three, he did not meet the threshold because he was not even an army, he was a soldier. But David had to break this rule. And how did he break it? God had anointed him. In chapter 16, God had anointed him. And you know, when God anoints you, one of the things that happen in your life is that you become qualified. You become, God gives you the favor, God gives you the grace, God gives you the opportunity. God starts preparing platform that cannot be prepared in when you're not anointed. Can allow me to speak to somebody and tell you, because God has anointed you, God has released his favor to you, you are going to do things that your generation were not able to do, your forefathers were not able to do, because you are operating under grace. So when they write the rules that you cannot be able to own this, you cannot start this kind of a business, you cannot be able to network with this kind of people, you need to realize that if God has anointed you, if God has graced you, if God is with you, if God is your savior and your leader, then you're going to do things that others will like, who, how did he do it? Much as you are underage, much as you are not qualified, because the grace, the anointing, the power, the favor, and the love of God is upon you. Allow me to speak to somebody this week and to tell you that you need to break rules in your life. If you strongly desire to go to the next level, you need to break the rule of imitation. You need to break the rule of comparison, and you need to break the rule of limitation. And the rule of limitation simply says that you just take the resources that are in your desk. You need to take the resources that God have entrusted unto you. The rule of comparison says, if you must compare yourself, then compare yourself with yourself. If you must compete with anybody, then compete with yourself. Then when it comes to the rule of imitation, do not imitate yourself with anybody, because you do not resemble anybody. So this is our last week word on Sunday, and we are saying you must become a law breaker. And law breakers will break three rules that we've said, which David broke. Rule number one that law breakers break is the rule of imitation. Don't be like anybody. Don't try to copy anybody. Copy, just follow your instinct. Just follow what God is telling you. If a fish was to be judged by frying, it would die thinking it is foolish. If you are fish, stay in the waters. Don't go in the dry land unless you are a frog. Number two, break the rule of comparison. Don't compare yourself with anybody. If you must compare or compete with anybody, then compete with yourself. And then number three, limitation. Break the rule of limitation. It is not about having a lot of resources. It's about using that which you have. David did not have a lot of resources. The only thing that he had was a sling, a stone, and a stick. And guess what? With those resources, he brought Goliath down. So break the rules. Break rule number one, the rule of imitation. Break the rule of comparison. Break the rule of limitation. This is John Kimani on the last word for today on Sunday. And by the way, we are doing a course on limitation or on creativity, a course on limitation. On creativity. We are doing a course on creativity. So we encourage you to go to our just to inbox if you're interested. We shall be beginning this course on November, the first week, the first Tuesday on November, and it's such an exciting journey that you cannot miss. My name is John Kimani. This is last word on Sunday. And until next week, Dr. Yuri Karanja, thank you very much for watching, and the many others that have watched. Remember what we say in our Zakana.